Hey everyone, my name is Alisha McKenna and I am the sexual health outreach worker here at the Sagatala Friendship Society. So today we intended to do kind of just a session where youth could gather and talk about their sexual health in a space that made them feel safe and welcome to ask questions. A little bit of change of plans because it's just me today. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to take you guys through a presentation that I provide to youth in our area. And yeah, I'm going to throw up the recording to the Ground Level Youth Center page so that you guys can check it out if you want to. So what we'll do is we will just go through the presentation. I'll show you guys a couple of videos that are in there and we'll talk about sex. All right, so here we go. Let's talk about sex. My name is Alisha McKenna. She or her pronouns. I work here at the Sagatala Friendship Society. I am part of the Northern Indigenous Health Alliance. So what we do is we bring sexual health, HIV, STBBI related content to this area. So we'll just get started here. Okay, so the land acknowledgement. I just want to take this time to acknowledge the homeland of the many diverse First Nations, and Métis people whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial. I'm grateful to work, live, and learn on the traditional territory of Treaty 8. Okay, guys, so it's about to get awkward. Videos on male and female anatomy. Essentially, that's kind of just an overview of, again, of male anatomy. So what we'll do next is we will have a look at anatomy as it applies to females. So that was, again, just a brief little video about female anatomy. I know sometimes we don't learn a lot about the specifics of anatomy, or it's kind of a tough question to talk about, or people are shy around it. So I just want to encourage you guys that if you have questions, to not be hesitant to ask them. Ask your parents, ask your physicians, ask a support person in your life, a trusted teacher, or contact myself here at the Sagatala, and I'd be happy to assist you on your journey to discovering more about your sexual health. So now we're going to get into what is sex. So let's define sex. So sex can be defined as the categories into which humans and most other living things are divided on the basis of their reproductive functions. Sex can also be defined as physical contact between two individuals that involves the stimulation of the genital organs of one or both partners. We have a little YouTube video about sex that I will share with you guys. This is a fun one. It just kind of demonstrates, again, that talking about sex doesn't have to be awkward. We can talk about it openly with people that we trust. All right, guys, so that's kind of just, again, a humorous way to talk about sex and talk about some actually important concepts like sexuality. What does that look like for all of us? How should we approach that? What are the safe ways to have sex? How can we be safe when we decide that we're emotionally ready to take that step with somebody else? What can we do to prepare ourselves? He also talked about a couple myths in there, which I mean, I think is super important, like the hymen. There is the myth that sex is supposed to be painful for women the first time, and that is just not true. All right, so we defined sex and we watched a brief video about sex, and we will just keep going through. Okay, so what is sex? We see Yoda there telling us that we need to ask for consent anytime that men and ladies, you are deciding you want to have sex, you need to be asking that person, okay? They need to be giving explicit consent that that is what they want to do. All right, so what is sex? So sex can be vaginal, so that's penis inserted into a vagina. Sex can be anal, so penetration of the anus. Sex is also kissing, oral sex, hand jobs, fingering, dry humping, masturbation, or mutual masturbation. I think sometimes when we think about sex, we only think about the obvious, which again, typically would be the vaginal sex or the anal sex, but all these other methods that I have listed on the right here can also be considered sex, and they all require consent before doing so. Usually I'd have you guys here and I'd answer some questions, but we'll have to do this for now, and hopefully you get this information and it's helpful to you. We have the Mean Girls guy in the corner there, just some jokes. Mythbusters related to sex. There are a lot of myths out there, you guys, around sex. And again, sometimes we're just too uncomfortable to ask or debunk them ourselves, so we're gonna go through them here. Fact or myth. Again, if you guys were here with me live, we could go through these together and kind of do it that way, but I'll just go through it with you. Fact or myth? The first time a woman has sex, it is supposed to be painful. If you have sex during your period, you cannot get pregnant. Masturbating too often can cause you to go blind. There is no male birth control. You can reuse condoms, and you cannot get an STI from having oral sex. So these are some concepts related to sex that are thrown around quite often. So are they real? Are they fake? Are they a fact? Are they a myth? The truth about sex. So the first one is a myth, guys. Sex the first time should not be painful. Cue the hymen. We won't review that video right now, but it kind of mirrors back to what the funny gentleman in our previous video talked about the hymen. The hymen functions in a way that, again, protects women from experiencing pain the first time. It should not be painful. The second one is a myth. So you can get pregnant during your period, ladies. It is rare. It can happen. Sperm can live in a woman's body for 3 to 5 days. This means that pregnancy can happen even if you have sex 5 days before ovulation. Okay, so your period is not a free card to have sex and avoid the possibility of getting pregnant. So we need to always be safe. You will not go blind from masturbation. It doesn't happen. Myth. The next one, condoms are a form of male birth control. So it's a myth that there is no male birth control. When we talk about condoms, guys, condoms are super effective. And when I say super effective, I mean 98% effective at preventing pregnancy and STIs. This is crucial. If you're having sex, you need to be safe and you need to be healthy and you need to be protected. You cannot reuse condoms, guys. This is also very important. So for each sexual interaction, a new condom must be used. And the condom can't be altered or expired in any way. So if you guys are looking at your condoms and you're noticing tears in the wrapping, or you're noticing puncture marks or an expiry date that has passed, that condom is no longer safe to use. And I think actually what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys what a condom should look like and where to find the expiry date. All right, guys, I've got my handy bag of safe sex tools here. Pull one of these guys out for you. All right, so this is an example of what a condom may look like. This is flavored, it's banana. So as you can see, my packaging isn't altered in any way. It's completely sealed. If I pinch the condom, there's no air accessing it. So again, completely sealed, which is what we want. We see a brand that's well known on the front here. It's not a novelty item. In the back here is where we're going to find our expiration date and some rules about the condom. So down here, right under my finger, we'll see an expiration date. So guys, to practice safe sex, your condoms need to be not expired, okay? Because they can't work like they're intended to if they are expired. So next, STIs can be transmitted through oral sex. So STIs, contrary to popular belief, such as genital herpes, chlamydia, and gonorrhea, can be spread through oral sex. So we need to be vigilant and we need to be protecting ourselves. So when we're talking about oral sex, what we can use too for the prevention of STIs is a dental dam. I have an example of one here. Again, the packaging is sealed. We're seeing a reputable brand here. We have an expiration date on the bottom. So that's another tool that we can be using when we're practicing safe sex. Okay, guys, so we're going to talk a little bit about consent, because when we talk about sex, consent is key. It's so important that we discuss this. So what does it mean to you? What is consent? So before engaging in any form of sexual activity, consent must be given. So what is that? What does that look like? So consent is an explicit, enthusiastic yes. The absence of no does not mean yes. That's really important, guys. It needs to be verbally, enthusiastically spoken. Consent can be revoked at any time. So your partner has the right to change their mind. So at any time during sex or during an interaction or during a kiss or during any sort of sexual activity, your partner is allowed to revoke consent. When that happens, it's your responsibility to stop. Consent cannot be given while under the influence of alcohol or substances. So that's key, guys, because if you're out having a few drinks with friends, you're at a bar, and any sort of alcohol or substance use is involved at that time, a person who is drunk or drinking cannot give consent because they are not in a clear state of mind. It's just good practice to check in with your partner throughout sex. So consent has been given, it's an enthusiastic yes, it's happening, all is well. It doesn't hurt to check in with your partner throughout and just make sure that they're doing okay. They're still comfortable, they're still giving consent, and it's something they want to continue. The legal age for consent for sex in Alberta is 16. A 16-year-old cannot consent to sexual activity with an authority figure or person in power. So a 16-year-old cannot consent to sexual activity with an authority figure or person in power. So a person in power could be, just for an example, it could be a teacher, a politician, your boss. All of those people are considered to be authority figures or people in power. Therefore, you cannot consent to sexual activity with them. Underneath in the link here, guys, we do have some exceptions to the law. We're not going to go through them now, but just know that that information is out there, and it's important to be reading it, to be knowing it, and to be aware of it. If you're under the age of 18, you cannot consent in any activity of exploitation. So what does that mean? What is exploitation? So exploitation is pornography, sex work, or prostitution. And some people don't know this, but pornography includes nudes. Okay, so sending nudes, taking nudes, sharing nudes, all counts as exploitation if you're under that age of 18. So we just need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of our partners. We need to take care of the people that entrust us with their bodies. And with that, that's really important. We need to again protect those people in our lives, right? Not exploit them, not send pictures, not share pictures. We want to be really mindful of that. What we're going to do now is we're going to watch a video about consent. So consent continued. We have my man Keanu Reeves here. I'm not sure if some of you guys followed the news. I think maybe it was a year ago now, I'm not sure, but Keanu was getting a lot of attention for how he treated the ladies. You can see in both photos here, Keanu is very careful not to put his hands on women when he does photographs with them. So again, like Keanu is mindful of consent. He's mindful that he doesn't just have the right to touch a woman any place on her body, even for a photo, unless she asks. So guys, be like Keanu, get consent. And we will watch our video on consent. Okay, guys, that is one of my favorite videos around consent, honestly. It just describes it to a T. Fun little pun there for you. It just does such a great job of really explaining what that means in a way that's easy to understand for everyone. We had a little bit, some explicit language in there, but that's okay. I think we can handle it. So consent continued. We watched our T video. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some contraceptive and safe sex methods and what you can use. So contraception, all at the bottom there, we have different kinds of contraception. So we have IUDs. So IUDs, these are for women. They are available in hormonal and non-hormonal options. So a non-hormonal option would be a copper IUD. We have the Depo-Vera, which is an injection once every 3 months administered up at the hospital. We have the pill, the birth control pill. There are several forms, Yasmin, Yaz, just to name a couple off the top of my head. So the pill needs to be taken consistently every single day to be effective. So that's super important. Birth control, the pill has a super high rate of success at preventing pregnancy when taken correctly. The patch, so the patch is worn on the upper body, so typically the shoulder. Again, the patch has to be worn consistently to be effective. There's a vaginal contraceptive ring. So this is a ring placed into the vagina and it's worn for 3 weeks at a time. Male condoms, so those were these guys that I showed you. They come in different flavors, colors. Again, what is so important about these things to make sure that they are put on correctly, the package is sealed, and you're checking the expiration date. Female condoms are also a form of contraception. To be honest, they're seen, I think, quite a bit rare in comparison to male condoms, but they are out there and they are available to you guys. So this is what a female condom looks like. This is an example. It has the directions on the back for how to utilize it properly. It has your details here, and it also has an expiration date, which, as mentioned, we need to be looking for when we're talking about condoms and contraception. Don't mind me, I'm just losing all my condoms here. All right. Spermicide is an option for contraception. So it's used to kill sperm. It has a really high failure rate, you guys, at preventing pregnancy. So if we're talking contraception methods to prevent pregnancy, I would not recommend spermicide. I would recommend one of the other choices we have listed here. Again, the only contraception on my list that will also protect you against an STI are condoms. So ladies, if you have an IUD, if you're using the patch, if you're using the vaginal ring, if you're on the pill, just know that you will be safe from pregnancy if you're using them properly, but you won't be safe from contracting an STI. The morning after pill we have as well, guys. So this is also known as Plan B. So Plan B is emergency contraception. So you have sex, you don't use contraception, you fear becoming pregnant, what you can do is go down to your local pharmacy. Now you can buy Plan B right off the shelf, whereas previously, I know, like when I was a teenager, it was kind of new, it was just coming out, and we had to do, or if you wanted to access Plan B, you would have to have a consult with your pharmacist. But again, now it is available on the shelf. So Plan B will prevent pregnancy again, but not STIs. Okay, so STIs, let's talk about them. So STI stands for sexually transmitted infection. This was formerly known as STD, guys, which that term is still used quite often today, but the correct version now is STI. So STD stood for sexually transmitted disease. The reason why they changed it up to STI, sexually transmitted infection, from sexually transmitted disease is that there are quite a few STIs that are curable. So coining them all with that same term of disease just didn't make sense anymore. So STIs are passed through sex. So again, sex involves many different activities. So it can be vaginal, anal, and oral. For the most part, guys, STIs are transmitted by the exchange of fluids. Okay, so that's the key component there, is the fluid. Some STIs, however, can be passed through skin-to-skin genital contact. So we have just a little chart here with our little germ guys, common STIs in teens. So we have chlamydia. So up to 40% of women with untreated chlamydia will develop pelvic inflammatory disease. HPV, so HPV can cause genital warts with no symptoms at all. You wouldn't even know. There is currently no treatment for subclinical HPV, but there is treatment for others. So there's several strains of HPV, several strains. And gonorrhea at the bottom, which is a major cause of pelvic inflammatory disease, infertility, and tubal pregnancies in women. So you don't want to have one of these guys here. You know, you don't want that to happen. You don't want to have to go through that process. So safe sex is important. Safe sex is key. And being tested is crucial. STIs continued. Okay. So we have chlamydia. We have gonorrhea, which is also known as the clap. Trichomoniasis, that's a tough one for me to say. Syphilis, herpes, HPV, HIV, AIDS. Those are a kind of a list of more of the STIs that are out there that you can contract from sex and sexual interaction. So we have, for example, syphilis, guys, in Alberta right now. We're seeing an increase of 108%. 108% increase in cases of syphilis in Alberta. And when I say Alberta, I'm actually specifically meaning the North Zone. So when we look at statistics for STIs that are put out by the Alberta government, they do break them down into zones. So you'll have like the Edmonton zone, you'll have the South Zone, you'll have the North Zone, which is what we're a part of. And right now we are facing kind of a crisis around syphilis. It's there are many cases now. Again, 108% is a huge jump. So these STIs are, what are they? Are they curable? Chlamydia is curable. Gonorrhea is curable. The one I can't say very well, trichomoniasis, is curable. Syphilis, again, although on the rise, is curable. Herpes, there is no cure. HPV can be prevented with vaccine. Typically, depending on your parents and your preferences, again, there are vaccines for HPV. You might see them starting to be administered in the school level. So some of you might have had an HPV vaccine already. HIV cannot be cured. And we have AIDS, no cure. So I think what we need to remember most about that list, guys, is that a lot of those STIs are curable, but the key is early detection. To cure these STIs, they need to be detected, and they need to be detected early on. So as I mentioned, in Alberta, syphilis is on the rise. So syphilis is highly contagious. It's sexually transmitted. So in its primary stage, a painless open sore or ulcer can be found on site where bacteria first enter the body, and you might not even know you're infected. I think there is this myth out there that if you have an STI, you're going to know right away, and there are going to be all these signs, there are going to be all these symptoms. That's just not true. In its secondary stage, symptoms include hair loss, rashes on the body, fever, swollen glands, flat or gray white-looking sores on mouth and genitals. And in the tertiary stage, the third stage, the most severe, it can lead to damage to the brain, heart, blood vessels, bones, and even cause death. So this is an example of what an untreated STI can do, what can happen. So syphilis can be treated. Early detection is key. And when we're talking treatment, penicillin or other antibiotics are used to treat syphilis. So again, guys, early detection, we don't know if we don't test. We don't know if we're not tested. We don't know all of the time if our partners are being safe, or if they've had multiple partners, or if they have tested. So it's really important to just, again, be safe when you're having sex, use condoms, use contraception, and get tested. Okay, so we have some warning signs of an STI. Genital discharge, genital or urinary burning, genital itching, genital sores. In women, lower abdominal pain can actually be a sign of an STI. And nothing, again, you guys, nothing. You'll be walking around and not even know that you have an STI. There are not always warning signs. More STIs. So many STIs are asymptomatic. So that means that there are no visible symptoms. The only way to detect an infection is through screening. So you can be tested for STIs at the Peace River Hospital, or if you're not from Peace River, you can be tested at your local community hospital. So right now with COVID-19 and protocols around that, testing does look a little bit different. So I want to make you guys aware of that. But you can book a test or a screening by contacting public health at our local hospital. So what can happen if you have an STI and it's left untreated? Infertility, both in men and women. Pelvic inflammatory disease specific to women. Epididymitis, that's a tough one for me to say, which is inflammation of the coiled tube at the back of the testicle that stores and carries the sperm, so that would be men. Urinary tract complications, cervical cancer, psychological impact, serious illness, and even death. So we talked about STIs, and now we have to talk about STBBIs. So STIs, again, are sexually transmitted infections. STBBIs are blood-borne infections. So these are transmitted by contaminated blood. So some can be spread through fluids like semen or vaginal secretions. HIV is the only STBBI that can be spread by breast milk. So HIV stands for human immunodeficiency virus, again, and it is an STBBI, meaning that it is spread by contaminated blood. So it can be caused by sharing needles. Contaminating body piercing and tattooing equipment can lead to an STBBI. Coming into direct contact with someone who is bleeding without using PPE, such as gloves. So if you guys are performing any sort of first aid, you need to protect yourself first before you're performing that first aid to keep you safe, right? So make sure that you're gloving up when you're performing any sort of first aid or assisting. Sexual intercourse or close contact with someone who is infected. So for example, if you have sex with an HIV positive person, it is possible that you can become infected if that person isn't treating their HIV responsibly by use of medication. So it can be transmitted from mother to baby sometimes, as mentioned by HIV, which can be transmitted by breast milk, the only one. And now we are into, again, we'll talk more about HIV, which as mentioned is an STBBI. So we talk about HIV. It's a sexually transmitted bloodborne infection. It falls into that category. It's transmitted through direct contact with body fluids such as blood, semen, pre-seminal fluid, vaginal fluid, and breast milk. So when I talk about direct contact, sorry, that means you can't catch it by kissing. You can't catch HIV by sharing a cup or sharing a piece of food or holding hands. It has to be through direct contact with body fluids. It's not transmitted through tears, sweat, saliva, mucus, vomit, urine, or feces. And transmission can occur through vaginal, anal, and oral sex. So if practiced safely, though, oral sex is a low risk in this category, but it can also be transmitted through the sharing of sex toys, sharing drug use equipment, and unsafe body modification. So if you're getting a tattoo or anything like that, you want to make sure that the equipment that they're using is clean and sterile and comes packaged, and that they're opening that in front of you. So we have here safe sex. So when we talk about safe sex, it's important to keep yourself and your partner safe by practicing safe sex. Condoms are 98% effective at preventing pregnancy and STIs. I can't say this enough. Condoms, 98% effective. That's huge. It's a huge number. If you're sexually active, you should get tested before each new partner. Ask any sexual partners to be tested for STIs before engaging in sex. So that conversation might be awkward, you guys, but it's worth it. At the end of the day, it's your body, it's your health, and you deserve that information. Your partner has the right to know. You guys, your partner has the right to know if you have an STI or an STBBI and are planning on engaging with them sexually. They need to consent to that. They need to know. It's important to inform current and previous partners if you test positive for an STI. So your hospital can actually inform previous partners or even your current partner anonymously if you request it. So if you go into the hospital and you have a test and your test comes back positive, and I mean, I know that that could be embarrassing and that might not be something that you want to deal with. So the hospital can do what's right by your partners, your previous partners, and inform them anonymously so that they can get the treatment that they need. So rubber downs or latex sheets should be used to practice oral sex safely and prevent the spread of STIs. So that was this little ditty I had right here, a dental dam. There are other options for safe sex products for those allergic to latex. So being allergic to the condom, it's not an excuse. It doesn't count. It doesn't fly. There are alternatives, to latex products, such as polyurethane products. So polyurethane products can be used for those that, again, are allergic to latex. You can buy them at the drugstore. You can get them here from the SEGATAL, from the Sexual Health Program. So they are out there. So I encourage you to use them. All right, guys. So here we would have done an activity if we would have been together. So this is something that you guys can actually do on your own at home. We have the orange test. So the question, the hypothesis, what we're asking is how many oranges will fit in a condom without it breaking. How many oranges do you think will fit in a condom without it breaking? Sorry, guys, it feels like Friday, 6 o'clock, Thursday evening. Anyways, yeah, so feel free to do this orange test. Try it out. Let me know how it goes. Call me here at the SEGATAL, email me, Facebook us on our page. Let me know how it goes. This is actually going to wrap up our sexual health presentation for today. And I want to thank you guys for taking the opportunity to listen and view this recording and really get an in-depth idea about your sexual health. And I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys soon.